Okay, Lesson 10 begins with a focus on a single piece that we're going to prepare. This is really your first solo, guitar solo that you're going to learn. And this is a piece that will pay off. If you put time into it, it will reward you. It's a piece that is fairly simple to learn, but once you get it up to tempo, sounds pretty interesting and will be impressive to your friends and family who know you're taking a guitar class. So, Andante, the title of this piece, refers to the tempo. The tempo is the speed of the beat. And in this case, Andante translates into a walking pace. So this is not intended to go very fast. This piece was composed by a famous Spanish guitarist-composer named Antonio Cano, who lived in the 19th century. And so in this piece, we're going to use a uniform pattern, at least in the first two lines of music, where the right hand focuses on playing the same exact thing. And in a second, we'll go back and we'll focus on that. We're going to use thumb on the bass strings, and then as in the other pieces we've learned before, then we're going to pluck a series of notes with the right hand fingers using I and M alternation. So let's review some of the basic materials of this piece. So we're going to review 3 fretted notes that we've learned. Starting on the 3rd string, A. The 3rd string, 2nd fret, we play A. We're going to pluck that with our index finger. And then the next note that we're going to play is the 2nd string, B, played open. And we're going to pluck that with our middle finger. And then the 3rd note that we're going to learn right now is C. That's the same string, 2nd string, 1st fret. So again, that's 3 notes, A, B, and C. And again, do not ignore the right hand. The right hand there is actually very, very important. And notice the fingering is index, middle, index. Now you want to stick to that pattern because that's going to avoid those unnatural string crossings that we talked about in the last lesson. This is the reason for starting with those fingers. So let's try to play A, B, C, and then we're going to play C, B, A. And when you pluck, you're going to do I, M, I, and then again, I, M, I. So it should sound like this if you just listen real quick. I'm going to rest my thumb on the 5th string as I do this. And so here's A, B, C, plucked with I, M, I, and then again, C, B, A, plucked with I, M, I. So A, B, C. And now we're going to do it back in reverse. C, B, A. Right? So we're just going up and then back. A, B, C, and then we return. C, B, A. And again, remember in the right hand, that's an I, M, I pattern. Okay, so this piece basically uses those 3 notes, but we're going to precede that. We're going to start, before we play that, we pluck a thumb on the 5th string, A, so that this piece actually is thumb on A, and then A, B, C. And then we do another thumb on A, and we play C, B, A again. So if you look at the music for Andante, you'll see how this is laid out. Notice the thumb notes have all the stems going down, whereas the treble string notes have the stems going up. So you're really learning here a piece in 2 parts, bass and treble. So here are the first 2 measures played very slowly. Now let me try that again, and this time I'm going to focus on the right hand so that you can really see what's going on with the right hand. P, I, M, I, P, I, M, rest strokes with those fingers on the treble strings. At a slightly faster tempo, that should sound like this. If we look at the next two measures, if we move ahead to the next two bars, what happens is very similar. The thumb is going to switch to the 6th string, and then we're going to play 3 notes on the 2nd string. B open, C 1st fret, and then D 3rd fret. And in the following measure, we do the same exact thing, thumb on the 6th, and then just pluck those 3 notes, D, C, and B, in reverse order. So again, measures 3 and 4 are 6th string P, and then B, C, D, and those 3 notes then in reverse. The entire time your right hand should actually be doing the same pattern. Thumb, index, middle, index. Try to be consistent with that. So let's take a look at those 4 bars and look at the right hand here. So we have thumb, index, middle, index, P, I, M, I, P, I, M, I, P, I, M, I. You want to try to do that as smoothly as you can. So here it is from the angle where you can focus on the left hand. I'm just going to speed up the tempo a little bit now that you've heard it a number of times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first line of Andante. If you look at the next line of music, that 5th bar is exactly like the first thing that we played. So that the thumb plucks the 5th, and then we play A, B, and C. So you already know the 5th bar. Now we need to move to the 6th measure, or bar. And in this case, we're going to play a new bass note. The thumb is going to pluck the 4th string D. And now we're going to move to the 1st string. First, we're going to play D on the 2nd string, 3rd finger, and then E, open first, and F. So that 6th measure is D, 4th string, and then the next D on the 2nd string, E, F. So measures 5 and 6 sound like this. Again, my right hand is always doing the same thing that we discussed before, where I play rest strokes with the hand. And that doesn't change throughout this piece. So here's the first 6 measures played slowly so that you can hear them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first 6 measures. It's really important to play those very, very slow and using the proper right hand fingering and left hand fingering for that matter as well. So if we look at the 7th measure, here we're going to have to play 3 different E's. The first E, we've already learned all of these, but let's just review them. We have a high E, a middle E, and a low E, all played in a row here. So that we're going to start with the first middle E. And the middle E is played on the 4th string, 2nd fret. We're going to pluck that with the thumb. And then we're going to use the middle finger to pluck the 1st string E. And then the thumb will pluck the 6th string E. So basically we have mid E, high E, low E. Thumb, middle, thumb. Or P, M, P. The last 3 notes of this measure are fairly easy. So we have mid E, high E, low E, and then we need to reach for G sharp, which we learned previously as the 1st fret, 3rd string, and then that connects to A, which is the next note up, 2nd finger, 2nd fret, 3rd string. And that is A. And those 2 notes are plucked with the index finger and then with the middle finger. And the last thing we end with is a thumb on the 5th string. And notice that the rhythm changes in the 8th measure. We go from quarter notes to half notes. So here is the entire example, the first 2 lines, and I will repeat them. So I think what I'll do is on the repeat change angle slightly so that you can see my right hand. So here is Andante. Now with a focus on the right hand. So that same example, sped up a little. If you practice it carefully and you're true to that fingering and in both hands, you'll be able to speed this up. And the piece played at tempo, if you look it up on many postings, you will be able to hear this. But to give you a little idea, here's how it will sound at a bit more faster tempo. So it's definitely worth practicing it slowly. So the rest of the piece basically has 2 more lines, as you see in the notation. The 4th line is exactly like the 2nd line, which you've already learned. So all that's left for us to learn is the 3rd line of music. The 3rd line of music uses a new right hand fingering. And so we have to basically reverse the order of the index and the middle fingers in order to avoid the unnatural string crossings. So there are no new notes here. But if you pay particular attention to the right hand, when we start measure 9, which is the beginning of the 3rd line of music, the thumb plucks the 5th string, and then we're going to lead off with the middle finger on the on the 1st string, and then follow it with the index and the middle. So notice that the 3 high notes that we play after the thumb are E, D, and C. Right? So that's going to look like this. P, M, I, M. Right? So in the left hand there, remember that E is the open 1st string, D is on the 2nd string, 3rd fret, and C is the 1st finger, 2nd string, 1st fret, right? From there then, we're going to continue doing the P, M, I, M pattern for the rest of this line. Once we go to the fourth line, we'll switch back to the first pattern we were using, which is PIMI. Again, all of this is intended to avoid the unnatural string crossings. So here is what measure 9, the third line, sounds like. We have a thumb, and then E, D, C, and this time the thumb plays the 6th string, and we play D, C, B. Thumb goes back to A, and we have C, B, A. And all three of those measures are played with the same P, M, I, M pattern, which is different than the one we did at the first on the first 2 lines. Measure 12 of this uses, again, the low E, then a 2nd string open B, and the middle E, plucked with the thumb. So here are measures 9 through 12. This is the third line of music, played very slowly. As I said before, the fourth line of music is exactly like the second line. So that sounds like this. So now I'd like to present the whole piece for you. And I will play it with the repeats. That means I'm going to play measures 1 through 8 and repeat them. And then I will play measures 9 through 16 and repeat those as it's indicated in the music. And notice remember the symbol for repeat, right? And there's a repeat from and there's a repeat to symbol that's a reflection of it. Those are presented in these examples, and you can read about them in the text. So here is Andante at a moderate tempo, played both sections. So it's a pretty long piece when you play it all out as it's notated, right? Those repeats are used for efficiency because in the past music notation wasn't as easy. So anyways, that wraps up Andante and this portion of lesson number 10.